into heaven, and we read about that in 2 Kings chapter 2. And Elisha takes the mantle and continues on with Elijah's work. Well, eventually judgment must fall, and we read about that in 2 Kings chapter 15. We see it begins in verse 17. In the 39th year of Azariah, king of Judah, began Menahem, the son of Gadi, to reign over Israel, and he reigned 10 years in Samaria, or Shomron in Hebrew. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, Yahweh. He departed not all his days from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. And this is something we read all throughout the book of 1st and 2nd Kings, is the northern tribes, all the kings do evil. They all fail. And we read on, verse 19, and Paul the king of Assyria came against the land, and Menahem gave Paul 1,000 talents of silver, that his hand might be with him to confirm the kingdom in his hands. And Menahem exacted the money of Israel, even all of the mighty men of wealth, and each man 50 shekels of silver, to give to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned back and stayed not there in the land. So he basically bribed the king of Assyria and says, don't invade me, here's some money, leave me alone. And we read further in verse 29, in the days of Pekah, king of Israel, came Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and he took Ijon and Abel Beth Maachah and Janoah and Kedesh and Hazor and Gilead and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and carried them captive to Assyria. So thus begins the actual exile of the northern tribes. It doesn't start with Ephraim, it starts with Naphtali. And we read a little bit later in 2 Kings 17, verses 1 and 2. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hoshea the son of Elah to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. Against him came Shalmaneser king of Assyria, and Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So king of Egypt, and brought no present to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison. Verse 5, then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land, and went up to Samaria, and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea the king of Assyria took Samaria, and carried Israel away into Assyria, and placed them in Halah and in Habor by the rivers of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt, and had feared other gods, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel, of the kings of Israel, which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things which were not right against the Lord their God, and they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city. And they set up images and groves in every high hill and under every green tree. And there they burnt incense in all the high places, as did the heathen whom the Lord carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke the Lord to anger. For they served idols, whereof the Lord had said unto them, Ye shall not do this thing. And by the way, the Western world, and in particular where the lost tribes are scattered amongst America and parts of America anyway, and parts of New Zealand and Australia and England and perhaps Canada and a few other places, they were doing the same thing. And nations have become heathenistic, and Esau and his New World Order are having dominion over us because of our own wickedness. And so the very things that they're doing there, we're doing now. We've got a Buddha on every corner these days. Verse 13, Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers, saying, Turn ye from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Notwithstanding, they would not hear, but hardened their necks like to the neck of their fathers, that did not believe in the Lord their God. And they rejected his statutes and his covenants that he made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he testified against them. And they followed vanity, and became vain, and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom the Lord had charged them that they should not do like them. And they left all the commandments of the Lord their God, and made them molten images, even 2 calves, and made a grove, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served Baal. Just like today. And the church in the West is becoming maddened with the wine of Babylon. It's becoming maddened. The Pentecostals used to believe in miracles, but now they're following strange spirits indeed, by and large. And uh, we read on, and they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, and used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel, and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. And Judah kept not the commandments of the Lord their God, but walked in the statutes of Israel which they made. And the Lord rejected all the seed of Israel, and afflicted them, and delivered them into the hand of the spoilers, until he had cast them out of his sight. So beware also, America, and all the countries where we have had a great deal of gospel light, and we have turned away from Yahweh's commandments and broken our covenant. The same thing that Yahweh did to the house of Israel back then, he will do now. And he's going to bring terrible judgment. But this time he's going to bring the lost tribes, the remnant of the lost tribes, out of these countries. But still, a great deal of people are going to die in the Western world, in places like America, because of this sort of idolatry and wickedness. And we read further that in verse 21, For he rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. And Jeroboam drave Israel from following the Lord, and made them sin a great sin. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam which he did. They departed not from them, until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets. So was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and from Cuthah, and from Ava, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel, and they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. And these guys became the Samaritans. So Yahweh got rid of the lost tribes, or the house of Israel, and they were scattered and later lost their identity, and he brought these other ones in, and they became the Samaritans. So Yahweh brought terrible judgment to the house of Israel because of their idolatry. But Yahweh hasn't finished his work with the northern kingdom, but he's working with them through, or has been working with them through the gospel these last 2,000 years, along with the Gentiles that are not, from the lost tribes. So Yahweh's been building his tabernacle, and nothing stops his program. But the house of Israel has lost its identity, and they don't know who they are necessarily. Yahweh promises to bring a remnant of them back into the land, and this is the time that we will be entering into shortly. So this is what we're going to look at in the next talk. We're going to look at the prophetic future for the northern kingdom, what Yahweh said would happen to them, and how he would bring them back. So I hope you've enjoyed that. It's quite a long talk today, and there's a lot of information there, and we've only really just touched on it briefly. So just to recap, we've looked at the fullness of the Gentiles. We've had a look at the nature of Bible prophecy and time. We've had a very brief overview of the book of Genesis and the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We've had a look at Joseph and the prophecies regarding him and his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. We've had a look at the division of Israel into two houses, the house of Judah, which became the Jews, and the house of Israel, which became the lost tribes who lost their identity. And we've had a look at the apostasy of the house of Israel, how right from the very beginning of the split between the Judah and the house of Israel, that they went into idolatry. And we've looked at their scattering, and next talk we'll look at the prophesied regathering of the lost tribes and how they relate to us. There are many texts regarding Israel's regathering, the house of Israel that is, not the Jews, but the house of Israel, and we'll have a look at those next week. These are just some of them. Well, that's all for our history lesson today on Joseph and the lost tribes of the house of Israel. We've seen their beginnings and the promises made to them and their dispersion from the land due to idolatry and wickedness. And in the next talk, we'll look at their regathering. Well, that's all we have time for today, folks. In the meantime, until next time, may Yahweh bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And in Hebrew, V'yevarechecha Yahweh v'yishmerecha, Ya'ir Yahweh p'nayav elecha v'yechanecha, Yisa Yahweh p'nayav elecha v'yasim lecha shalom. And Yahweh's face that shines upon us is Yeshua, the Mashiach. He said, "He who has seen me has seen the Father." So if we're praying for Yahweh to show us his face, we're really praying to meet the Mashiach, Yeshua.